If you love me, you should just know what it is that I'm feeling. You should just know what it is that I want. You should just know what my needs are. Avoidance will often put you in the position of having to be a mind reader, especially fearful avoidance. Now, anxious preoccupied can do this as well, but it is particularly relevant with avoidance. When you're dealing with an avoidant, regardless of whether you're dealing with a dismissive or a fearful avoidant, you are dealing with a person that received consistent childhood emotional neglect in one way, shape, or form. But in addition to that neglect, you're also dealing with a person that had their feelings rejected. Their feelings were dismissed. When they tried to express themselves, it was shot down, completely dismissed and reprimanded. So what they learned is that communicating their needs, their feelings, equals rejection. It equals being hurt. It equals disappointment. So they carry this wound into the relationship. Communicating their needs is terrifying to them. They associate it with conflict. They associate it with rejection and even abandonment sometimes. So you have a person that is not communicating with you what their needs are, but they're still wanting their needs to be addressed. They are still wanting their feelings to be addressed. And when you finally get to the core of it, they'll tell you that you should have just known all along. But nobody can truly just know, because nobody's a mind reader. Every person has their own unique life experiences and perspective. If you put your partner in a position where they have to read your mind, you're setting it up for inevitable failure. And what happens with the avoidant, and the fearful avoidant in particular, is that their unmet needs bottle up over time. Because their needs, their feelings haven't been addressed. Now, they haven't told you, maybe they've indirectly hinted at it, but never directly told you what their needs are. Well, it builds to resentment. Now you have a person that is resenting you more and more and more throughout the relationship, except they're not telling you. Due to their fears of rejection, due to their fears of conflict, they are not telling you. So it's building up like a pressure cooker inside of them until it reaches the breaking point. And that's when the relationship can end with an abrupt discard, a rug pull. Or they can slowly fade out on you, becoming more and more distant, more and more disconnected, more and more cold, more and more quiet, and remove even physical intimacy altogether. But when you ask them if everything's okay, they tell you everything's fine, because again, they don't like to communicate their needs and often don't even do so until it reaches the breaking point. Oh, well, now when the relationship is ending, they're telling you the very specific reason that they're ending the relationship for this unmet need that they never told you about. But in some cases, they don't give you that. They just give you vague excuses like they're not ready for a relationship because they still don't want to communicate their needs. But when you press them against the wall, well, now they're going to tell you that, yeah, you should have just known. I'm resenting you for this because you should have just known. The whole mindset of you should just know absolutely can create a death blow to a relationship because you're not being authentic with your partner. You're not letting them know what you're feeling, what your needs are, and you're putting them in a position of having to be a mind reader, which is setting the relationship up for inevitable failure. It is so essential and important to communicate your needs and your feelings to your partner. Set those boundaries, those limits of what you want, what you don't want, what you'll tolerate, not tolerate, what you need, what you don't need, and what your expectations are. Never assume that your partner is going to just know what it is that you're feeling, or just know what's bothering you, or just know what your needs are. But this can be quite the painful experience when you find out that your avoidant partner, or fearful avoidant partner in particular, has been building up resentment against you all this time. And now they've reached that point where they have no more interest in the relationship. They've deactivated, meaning their dismissive avoidant side has taken over and they've completely stuffed their feelings for you. They have buried them, detached from them, and essentially thrown away the key to where they're not even allowing themselves to access their feelings for you. They've shut down from their feelings for you and their emotions as a way to protect themselves. Again, due to that consistent childhood emotional neglect, They've learned to detach from feelings and suppress emotions when they are severely triggered. It's a way they learned to keep themselves safe from childhood. It's not your fault. If they did not communicate to you what their needs were, if they did not directly communicate to you with what their needs are, you could not have possibly read their mind. If you legitimately cared about this person, had empathy for their needs, if you loved them and you were as consistent as you can be, it doesn't mean you had to be perfect, but if you really tried to be there for this person and they pulled that rug from underneath your feet and blindsided you and hurt you and crushed you, it's not a reflection of you. It's not a reflection of your worth or your lovability. It's a reflection of their unhealed attachment wounds, which resulted in them having fear in communicating. But they may try to project it onto you like it's somehow your fault because they're trying to escape accountability. Accountability pokes at that core wound of defectiveness that they have, often because they personalize that consistent childhood emotional neglect. They grew up to feel defective and unlovable. That's why accountability is so difficult, because if they take accountability, say, ooh, I did this, or I have this insecurity, in their mind, it confirms that they are defective. So what they like to do is to project it onto their partner. See, it becomes your fault because you should have just known. And if you should have just known, they absolve themselves of any accountability or responsibility for the lack of communication because you should have just known. So don't beat yourself up for this. Don't blame yourself. If you showed up and you were a healthy, loving, consistent partner, even if you weren't perfect, it's not your fault. You didn't force them to not communicate. You were not in their childhood creating their attachment wounds. And you certainly are not a mind reader, and you never will be.